So I'd like to go ahead and open up this open session of the regular board meeting of the TRB. Steve, could you call the roll, please?
Of course. For the state treasurer, Ms. Glasser-Hedrick. Ms. Paquin for the controller. Mr. Rosensteel. Here. Ms. Higa.
Here.
Ms. Yamamoto.
Here.
Welcome. Ms. Hendricks.
Here.
Mr. Keeley.
Here.
Mr. Unterman. Here. Ms. Vargas.
Here.
For the state superintendent of public instruction, Ms. Dumont. Chairperson Dillon, you have a quorum.
Thank you very much. So, it's a joyous day, isn't it, Ed? Why don't you come up to the mic and tell us all about it?
Do you want to report out closed session first?
Do I, hang on a second, Ed. We want to make sure your mic's on. And Brian, I was going to do it after the
I'm
introduction.
so sorry.
That's okay. We're good. No, I appreciate you having my back. I appreciate that. So is Ed's mic on? You might have to get right on top of it, Ed.
It's hard to believe that you can't hear me.
There you go. You're good. All right. Ed, happy days.
This is really a happy day. For most of us here, this is the first time in 7 years that we've had a full board. And I can tell without hesitation that the appointment of Karen Yamamoto is a historic and happy occasion. You know, I would come to the microphone several times during this past 7 years, and I would be frustrated with the governor. Why aren't you doing this? Why aren't you doing this? I would talk to the appointment secretary. I talked to each one of you, I believe. I mean, we kept on the pressure, and everybody had sympathy, and we wanted to have. But I didn't realize that the governor had a grand plan. The governor was not going to appoint somebody unless it was the right person. And so we waited and waited. And then in January, I got a call from Mona Pascal. And Mona said, you know, I think we're ready to appoint someone. And but it's going to take some time because the governor's pretty busy. Well, we had the drought. We had being governor of the state of California is like being president of a country, okay? We fully understand that. But the thing that I wanted to say that he knew what he wanted. He wanted a person that had an overall vision of what was good for the state of California as well as CalSTRS. He waited until he had the right person come forth and say, I want to do it. And that person is you, Karen, and we are so appreciative. And I'm sorry, I didn't even identify. My name is Ed Folia, and I'm from the CTA NEA retired. But I think all us retirees are so proud of you and what you bring to this board and the questions you already, and the comments you've already made in the 2 days you've been here. We know you're going to be an excellent person. I also want to extend this to Nora, too, because she had to wait. She was about 5 years, I think. But anyway, the two appointments that are representing certain interests, those two persons are people that we can look to for leadership and to protect the interests of the stakeholders here at CalSTRS. Thank you very much.
Loretta Tagenberger, UTLA retired.
Yeah.
I'm always the echo of Ed Folia saying that we want a retired person in that retired seat. We have it. I'm not going to repeat, as I said in April, as a broken record, and 2 weeks later, we had one. And we are very, very happy to be represented. I've been retired, you're retired, now all those people up there, we really have a retirement system with a retiree sitting there. And welcome, we really are glad to have you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Loretta. So I really like it when I have good friends that are out there in the audience that do my introductions for me. So thank you very much. And Karen, welcome to the board.
Thank you.
We are very, very happy to have you. Okay, in closed session, the board did take action. We have increased the base salary for both our CEO position and CIO position, CIO positions, 5% for the 17-18 fiscal year. And that's all the business that we did in closed sessions that's reportable. So our first item of action is approval of the board agenda. I'd entertain a motion. Sharon has moved. And Joy has seconded. Everybody's had a chance to take a look at them. All in favor, say aye. All opposed, nay. Any abstentions? I think you want to say, did you want to state on the board?
Wait a minute, but this is just for the agenda. It's not for the minutes.
Oh, it's not from this. Never mind. Never mind. I thought we were doing both at the same time.
You're on it, Karen.
Good, because evidently I am not. Alrighty, so then let's go to our okay, we voted. Appointment of committee chairs, vice chairs, and committee members for 17-18. That was part of our book. Harry, I hadn't had a chance.
I talked to him.
And did he say yes?
He did.
Alrighty, so on the list of your committee members, if you could please add both Karen and Harry as alternates to the appeals committee on that chart. We have a committee of 3. Sometimes one of the 3 of us can't make it, and so they will fill in as alternates, and we appreciate them being willing to do that. So please take a look at the chairs, the vice chairs, and the appointments. Are there any questions? Entertain a motion to approve. So moved by Nora, seconded by Tom. All in favor, say aye. All opposed, nay. Any abstentions? Alrighty, moving on to our work plan. So the very first work plan we have is the boards. And that is TRB 8. So basically, really quickly, our past year, our primary focus was monitoring the system's funding and making adjustments to our key assumptions. We did that through several activities. We had a report from our actuarial staff analyzing various financial scenarios that propose risk to our funding plan or might require adjustments to our contribution levels. We took a look at mortality improvement methodologies, and we approved a new experience study. Those activities led us to making a variety of assumption adjustments, which were then utilized for our valuations, and the result of that valuation was an adjustment to the state's contribution level to the plan. We also reviewed analyses from long-term facility needs. We've delegated legislative authority on certain positions when necessary to the chair and vice chair. Amongst other things. So building on what we did last year, you can take a look at this year's work plan. I'm not sure how I want to do this. So I think what I'm going to do is just do the front page and then flip over to the back, if you guys don't mind. So in our system oversight, we have our regular items that come before us, the budget, the proposed budget, and then the adoption between July and November. We will have our regular reports on system risk management and cybersecurity in November and May. We'll always be taking a look at the contracts that require board approval. We will be having 2 educational opportunities that will be off-site. We pretty much have what we're going to be doing in September pretty ironed out. Along the terms of investment, educational opportunities along the lines of investments, benefits, board governance, and incentive composition. Then in March, we're looking at possibly investments, cybersecurity, and benefits. And if any of you have any other suggestions for that March offsite, please let Jack, Sharon, or me know. We'd appreciate that. In July, we will be looking at the approval for employer reimbursement for trustee services and review of delegations. In May, under system oversight, we will be taking a look at our sustainability report. It's at our seats today, so that will be presented again. That's an annual report, and we'll get that in May. Under Pencil Solution, we are going to be, we always take a look at our project risk oversight reports, and we will be taking a deeper dive into some of the progress on the go live and results and things like that.
Yeah, I wanted to underscore that word live there. You haven't seen that yet.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, this is new to our work plan.
I just want to raise everyone's attention to that word. So
Yeah.
now we're starting
Yeah.
to go into production.
And Jack, I want to make sure that we captured Joy's comments on when we had the panel earlier, that whole
I had-
issue of risk to project, and I think when we hear from our consultants today, there might be some ideas that come out of that also. So we might be adding later to our work plan.
Yeah, I had 3 things that I made notes on from today too that aren't on here. Do you want, whenever you want me to?
How about we go through the rest of it?
Yeah.
And
Yep.
we'll take a look at that, and we'll see if any of that changes after we have those reports. So then under board governance, we will be taking a look at our own self-evaluation and the annual evaluations of the CEO and CIO and our consultants. We will be adopting the board meeting calendar earlier this year, or I guess it's next year in February. And our elections are actually earlier also, they would be in May. Then, flipping it over, legislation and regulation policies. We will be, every time we meet, we'll be taking a look at state and federal legislation. You can see in November and February, we have 2 new items on our agenda. That's the amendments to the format for monthly reports, Pension Solution A. And Jack, did you want to talk about those a little bit more? There's actually 3 things on our work plan relating to that would be amendments, update to the amendments, and then actually the
Oh, you
adoption
mean
of those
what is that
amendments.
about?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's really because of the changes we're making in our technology project, Pension Solution, the requirements for data coming into the system. It's very specific, the regulation that details what data the schools provide us. And so to the extent we change requirements, we need to change the regulation. So it'll be looking at that.
Thank you. Then we have our regular report on the GASB and financial reporting actuarial evaluations. In November, we will be having our second review of the funding levels and risks, building upon what we did this last November and then all the work we did last year. And then in the spring, we do our valuations and adoption of contribution rates, interest rates, and factors and benefits. And then for education, we will have our annual Bagley-Keene and fiduciary trainings, and we are running late. We were to have one at this meeting. We've pushed that off to July, and that would normally happen in this meeting, so we will have the next one in May, barring any impact on our agenda next spring, like it was this year. So are there any questions about the work plan for the board? Let's add yours, and then we'll open it up for
Yeah, I just
questions.
had the 3 things, kind of from the discussion today. On November, again, as a component of the actuarial funding risk report, there will be some analysis that Rick and David will do specific to charter schools. But I think we should then, Jill, add on November the broader issues around charter schools that we talked about as well. So there'll be a legal component, a financial component, communication component, a training component. I think we can get that. I think that'd be a nice piece to put alongside the actuarial report and do it together. And we'll get together, but I think we should target November for that. That seems reasonable, given where we are in the year. And there's been work done on this already. It's more of you getting visibility of it, too. So that's one piece I would add for November. The second piece was, Tom mentioned it somewhat quickly in his presentation to you. We actually have a retirement readiness report to provide to you, so I guess I'd put that under education for November, if that's okay. And then the third piece which I need to talk to Ashish and the group, but I guess February probably makes more sense, is coming back to you with maybe a responsive scheme to what we learned this morning through our discussion around technology. So maybe it isn't a pension solution row on here, but there is a technology umbrella, and we figure out what are the fingers from that umbrella. Some of that might still be in closed session for cybersecurity, but there might be more strategy components to that. I mean, boy, it's been so long, I'm looking around the dais here, when we actually justified the pension solution project so many years ago. We did a lot of I was going through all those questions they did with you today. I thought, well, those were the strategy questions we answered at the time. What are we trying to accomplish? How are we trying to improve customer service? What are we trying to do with this $250 million project? But maybe we need a better constant look at that strategy and the things they alluded to today. So anyway, I think we should work on that and come back. Let's put that maybe for February. And that looks like there's time on that chart for that month anyway. It looks good. And maybe there's something, again, on March, I want to just reemphasize Dana's invitation, because the education for September, because one of your days especially for Jury and Karen, one of your days in September is just evaluation, your own evaluation of yourselves, of Chris, of myself, of your consultant. So you have one other day to do education and sit back and think. For March, that's new for us. We've really never, the board wanted more education and more time to talk and discuss. So that's a wide open 2 days of time. So there's really more to do there than just what we have listed here. So I hope people will send in ideas so we can start working on speakers and things. So those are my 3 additions, Dana. Technology, charter schools, retirement readiness.
Right, does anyone have any other additions that they want to do? Knowing that we will always add something along the line, I think we're okay. And I think what we'll do is we'll do all the board, or all the work plans, and then approve them all at once. How's that? All right. So appeals, Michelle, you want to check in? There you go.
All right, I always forget that I should ask to go first, because ours is so short and sweet that I always feel like it belies and doesn't do justice to the hard work of all the
Absolutely.
the committee members and everyone else who does all the work to bring it to us. But our highlights are that we conducted our regular duties of timely deliberation of proposed administrative decisions, as we always do. And our key plan activities are as they generally are, as we will meet on an as-needed basis to timely hear, deliberate upon, and expeditiously decide appeals of CalSTRS determinations, designate all or part of administratively adjudicated decisions as presidential decisions, as we may have some that come to us in the coming year, and to work with CalSTRS staff to identify training and education opportunities, adhere to the risk management policy established by the board, and review emerging and significant risks specific to the area of responsibility of the committee, and to report those risks to the board, and as well, to other committees as deemed appropriate as issues do present themselves. So we have a few things on our work plan as training. One in July, which was put to July for designating presidential decisions, and that'll be timely with one that we believe may be coming to us in coming months. So it'll be good to refresh our process around that, as well as in November, the RIP process and beyond. Good refresher for some of us and for others who are interested in how that works. So that's all I've got. Is there any questions?
Any questions of Michelle? All righty. Paul?
Thank you. So the Audit and Risk Management Committee, a good part of the work we do is what we do every year with respect to working with the auditors and receiving the audit results and reviewing them and accepting them, as well as working with them and on the progress on the report on internal controls and the corrective actions that are still underway. A lot of progress has been made. There's still work to do, so getting some information on that continues to be on our work plan. We also do our work on the internal audit plan and receive the results of internal audits, as well as approve a plan for internal audits. This year is a little bit different just because of the change in the timing of when we're holding meetings. So yesterday we approved just a 6-month audit plan, so we'll be coming back to approve an audit plan for the calendar year in November. We have the new responsibility of the oversight of the compliance program, so there are a number of elements of that we'll be working on over the year as that program develops. And then the final thing is that we do have a series of educational sessions, and some of them have to do with the integration of compliance into the organization as a whole. GASB 7374, I think that should say 7475, not 7474. And then one of the issues that has come up, and it has to do with monitoring the financial commitments and capabilities of contributing employers. As Jack mentioned, that will be something that will be particularly with respect to charter schools discussed at in the system funding risk report in November. We kind of have a placeholder there in February if there's anything more that needs to be done as we monitor the contributions and monitor do our employer auditing, whether there's anything else. But we keep those as placeholders generally for committee education. We don't do it in November because we've got so much on our plate because of the audit, but the other 3 meetings, we've got that capability, and sometimes we adjust based on what comes up as important.
Any questions of Paul? Okay, Sharon, I think you're up next, right? Do you want to again? There you go.
I'm glad that we're following Paul on audits and risk, because one of our commitments, along with Joy as Vice Chair of Benefits and Services, is to get more of a link, honestly, between what we learn from audits and risk into our benefits, so that we can kind of learn from what are some of the challenges and help on the front end of communicating with employers and doing important education, so that we can help remedy mistakes and hopefully, prevent them happening in the future. So we're really looking forward, and actually, I think Joy, you serving on audits and risk with Paul as Vice Chair will be a really helpful link. So this year we're kind of ramping up. This year's been, we've done educational presentations. You can kind of read the handout. One of the things that we did that I thought was interesting is learning more about the disability determination process. That's something I know for myself I didn't completely understand. So I would invite members to, if there are educational items or aspects, especially for the new board members, if there are parts of our benefits that you don't understand or would like more information about, we can provide that in benefits and services. I do feel like our committee is the heart of what we do. It's how we provide benefits and services to our members. And so we do have a full plan for next year. We are looking at the presentation of the retirement progress report. That's something I'm really proud that our staff does, just looking at how we can best inform our members, and I'm excited about looking at that in July. Let's see, what other things we want to highlight? We are going to, the employer audit findings. So to my comments earlier about connecting audits back to how we educate employers, that we're going to get a report on outreach and educational efforts. Today, Ms. Higa made a recommendation to actually include charter schools as well, since we had a report yesterday in audits and risk about some of the challenges in charter schools, and we would really like to be able to have our staff help inform charter schools around the state in terms of CalSTRS as an option, how CalSTRS works, and then making sure that all of California's educators are informed of the option of selecting CalSTRS as part of their retirement security. A couple other things. It was mentioned today by a couple of our retirees in the audience, and we have it on our work plan to talk about the adequacy of health benefits in retirement, because we know health benefits is a huge cost. Once you retire, not all of our districts, most of our districts do not provide health benefits for folks after they retire. So we're going to be looking at that. And we're also going to be, I think Ms. Yamamoto had brought up the suspended death benefit cases, and we're looking at that in May. So we have beefed up benefits and services for next year. We've got, I think, 4 meetings, right, Andrew? 4 meetings slated for next year, so we've got lots to look to, and that's all I got.
Carrie? I think this might be a question for you,
Oh,
Sharon,
sure, yeah, go ahead.
or an idea.
Yeah.
Add it, did you add? Oh,
Let me get him in there.
he's waiting in there.
There you go, Harry.
Thank you. Not sure if the work plan can accommodate the suggestion, but if it could and if it's appropriate, perhaps an item related to the future of services and educational services and the use of how we are currently using technology to reach our active, I'm thinking specifically really about actives at this point at different stages of their career at CalSTRS. In particular, how we can use technology to communicate to them the appropriate information at specific times of their career. Not sure whether or not that's can be accommodated next year, but my thinking on it is really member outreach, use of technology, and at different stages and generations, how our members are accessing information that's critical to them. For example, think of a teacher 25 to 30 years of age, the demands on his or her job, teaching in Los Angeles, traffic, going to a service center versus being able to get on a computer, and so how we're thinking about that. Maybe next year could be a time where we dive into that topic a little bit more deeply, if that would be
Great
appropriate.
suggestion. I think we can accommodate that in our, we'll work with Andrew.
Well, it's
to
really
make
similar
sure
to
we
what
can-
Sandy's done already in the behavioral finance area. Yeah. The UCLA's done a lot around behavioral finance, and we've had them actually speak to our staff about some fascinating stuff they do about how to incent people to make right decisions. And they've actually consulted with some other pension funds and overseas.
Yeah, I don't think we, I don't think we have to, and we don't have to recreate anything here, right? We probably can tap into some organizations that are already doing this around generational communications, and it's not only around financial literacy stuff, but what do you really need to know about CalSTRS and your pension? The value of it, that it's there, awareness, accessing information. There's so much that we can do around educating our own membership, using technology, branding CalSTRS, getting our message out. So
We've got a couple of items I think we can weave that into, and to the
Yep.
extent that you want more, we can, look at doing that in the following year, but we can definitely get started on that this year.
great, that'd be exciting.
Super. Sharon, back to you.
Well, I was just thinking, Andrew, I've mentioned this several times, and it's, I think every generation has a different preferred modality, and I know for me, I hate being on AT&T for like 2 hours. So I like chat. I love it when they say, "Do you want to chat with someone?" And I can go. But I know not every person likes that. But one other suggestion I had heard from one of our members on the audience was, I haven't updated my one-time death beneficiary for 20 years.
Right.
So could we, for the 60-plus folks or whatever, send a text message once a year saying, Ms. Smith, do you remember to update your, in a more kind of proactive, I think, way versus having to remember yourself kind of thing.
And
I think that's
we can absolutely
interesting.
look into that.
Yeah.
Another thought, just a thought, and
Yeah,
then I'll let
go,
it go, was we think about partnerships with for example, stakeholders, the teacher associations, AXA.
Constituencies.
Constituencies, tapping into the key people there and facilitating and coordinating with them where they can promote a webinar on a certain date, certain time, specific topic, and be interesting to see if we got some real traction around that. It could be fun.
Agreed.
Yeah, thanks, Andrew.
All right, Sharon, did you want to weigh in any more?
Sure, I think
I
Karen
have-
had,
I do.
I'm good, yeah.
Go ahead, Karen.
Okay. Just talking about the generational way people like to communicate, I think with other organizations, I've received notices saying, do you want to receive it in print? Do you want to do email? Do you want to do text? Not everybody does text. Not everybody does email. So if we can send that out so that we get some kind of an assessment, then we can maybe go on further.
And we do that, our staff actually is already.
Okay, so that's already
is
been-
already capturing information about how our members communicate. And I think that's really helpful information for then how we can, move forward with educating. So that's good. Thanks,
Yeah,
Karen.
we do an annual member survey. We'll show you the results of it with all kinds of nice data points on how members communicate with the system, everything. But we have moved much of the paper to digital as a default, and allowing people to opt back the old days. But really, we're trying to get the default into the digital world and the opting into the paper world.
But there are a lot of people that are still resistant to that, so
We've
I
had-
just want
yeah.
to make sure that we
Yeah.
get as many that we can.
Yep.
Yeah, that's a good word.
All right, anything further? All righty. Lynn?
Thank you. So I wanted to thank Brian and Jill and the committee this year for all the work and the heavy lift. We accomplished the coordinating of the review of the regular routine reports to the board in an effort to try to make that more efficient. And then I think Jill also took the lead on FPPC requirements for board members to file. And so all that information is now available in a very easy-to-use format on the board resources part of the website. And we also had educational forums looking at best practices and governance topics. And next year, Controller Yee wanted to plan to continue the board university concept, and we will be having an educational topic on each of the 3 meetings that we're scheduled to meet next year. In addition to that, we will be looking at a discussion of consultant evaluation policy to be potentially adopted by this committee to make the board evaluations of consultants a little bit more consistent, and also to address the question that you had brought up last month, Dana, about what happens if you're requested to evaluate in a different capacity the same consultant. We will also be continuing on and building on the work of the routine reports and looking at whether or not we need to adopt a policy to kind of formalize the process for that. And then finally, looking at discussing the scope of the charter with respect to board education. And touched a little bit about that. Last meeting, we had the report out the results of surveys of other pension funds and looking at best practices for what boards think is the appropriate level of board education and training.
Any questions of Lynn?
I like the board university.
And please, if anybody has any suggestions for topics, would love to hear them.
Absolutely.
All right, thank you.
All righty. Moving on to the comp committee. We did undertake several key initiatives this past year. We looked at a comprehensive labor market analysis and total rewards review. We approved base salary ranges for the portfolio manager and the general counsel. We were able to finally establish our base salary ranges and incentive opportunities for our chief operating officer and chief financial officer. And we reviewed our investment portfolio benchmarks and that process for setting compensation. And we reviewed the progress of the risk mitigating strategy milestones. So some of these things we will be continuing with. As always, we will be looking at investment performance impact on incentive pay. That always happens at our fall offsite. Our big initiative for this year will be a comprehensive incentive plan evaluation. We want to make sure that it's properly designed to support our organizational objectives. We have several items on our work plan. For that, we'll begin with an executive compensation education session in September. Then we'll follow up with a status update of that, the progress that we're making towards taking a look at that. And if we have any recommendations, they'll come to us in a report in May. So you can see that that initiative in itself is covering not only governance, but policy review and updates and our education. Under oversight and monitoring, we always disclose the incentives of the statutory positions in our the meeting immediately following when we've made those decisions, and so that will be in November this year. And that pretty much does it for comp. Are there any questions?
Dana?
Yes.
Did you add the items that we're bringing in July? We have two.
I did. I had them handwritten. I just went right over them. So we will be taking a look at the incentive policy, triggering events, which was one of them. And we will also be taking a look at, I'm not sure how to word it, Cassandra. You want to help me out?
The weighting of the CIOs.
Thank you. The weighting of the CIOs.
Incentive compensation structure.
Components within the evaluation. We'll also be taking a look at that in July. Thank you. No, I think most of that'll be an open session, won't it, Cassandra? Yeah. All right. Anything else? Thank you, Cassandra, for helping me.
One more thing.
Go ahead, Karen.
Are we gonna, there's one part on TRB 23 about succession planning discussion.
Oh, that is
the
new,
one
and that will be
February?
in February. Thank you. I did not highlight that when I was talking about it. And that comes out of our discussion that we had in April.
Yeah, I think I think Amy's working, still thinking of a speaker at that September offsite to kick it off and get thinking about it. So it's kind of, I think, in two parts.
On the succession?
Yeah. Is Amy here?
She's back there.
Is that right? Yes. Oh, you're over there now. We keep moving around. Okay. So she's arranging for a speaker for September.
Right.
And then you do more work in that.
All righty. You want to check in?
Sure. So, first of all, thanks to the committee, the staff, and the consultants. We've had a very productive 2016-17 year, as evidenced by the accomplishments on TRB 26, two of which were initiated under Mr. Rosensteel's and Ms. Hendricks' leadership in 2015, which was the cost report, which was initiated in 2015, and we saw proof of that and execution in 2016. Also in 2015, we adopted the RMS strategies, which we began to implement in 16-17. So thanks to Paul and Sharon for their leadership on those two initiatives. This year, we've adopted the investment beliefs. We adopted a low-carbon, passively managed $2.5 billion low-carbon index. We're reviewing our 21 risk factors and hopeful that by reviewing those, we will be more effective in what we're trying to accomplish. We've adopted new asset allocation targets. We implemented the Investment Insight Program again, as evidenced by Mr. Blake's presence here yesterday, which I think was a good use of our time. And we have another great speaker lined up for July, Jonathan Gray from Blackstone, probably the world's leading expert on real estate at this point, and some great people lined up for 17-18, including Professor Monk from Stanford, and others that our CIO has helped to facilitate and deliver on. So, but the big issues for us will continue to be the monitoring and oversight of the portfolio. That in and of itself is a big task.
Full of music today, I'm sorry.
Go, Tom. It's good.
He's your vice chair.
We'll go with
He's
it.
supposed to be,
Just
you
keeps
know.
popping up.
Yeah, I was trying.
That was a good
Yeah.
reference.
Jimmy Buffett night. Over at the River Cats Friday night, you can just see the all preview.
So our major responsibility as a committee is the oversight of the portfolio. Two of the big initiatives that we continue to have to monitor, as opposed to just the regular oversight responsibilities, are obviously the implementation and execution around RMS, a big policy decision that we adopted, and as that unfolds, to monitor the effectiveness of that policy will be very important, and the shift and feathering into the emerging markets and the implications of that onto the overall portfolio. So that is something that we have to do on a regular basis. But very excited about the work plan for 17-18, which will probably carry into 18-19, which is an extensive focus and look at the private asset classes, private equity in particular, and eventually real estate, and how we have, if you do, that's about 25% of the portfolio overall, so it's a significant percentage. But just in terms of how we should be thinking about those asset classes going forward, could there be different approaches to how that portfolio is managed, opportunities? So we'll do it in traditional CalSTRS fashion through a thoughtful, deliberate, educational study, and begin to dip our toes in the water if and when it's appropriate to do so. So that's really the big part of our work. I don't know, Christopher, if you wanted to add anything else? Is that good? Okay, so that should be an exciting focus for us. Yep, sure.
Alrighty. So I would entertain a motion to approve our work plans as presented.
I move.
Been moved by Karen. Seconded by Joy. It's your last chance to talk about any of them. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Well, your last chance today. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Any abstentions? All right, we've approved our work plans. All right, our next item is our state and federal legislation update. We do have bills that we're going to be taking positions on. So if you turn to TRB 29, please. Joycelyn and Grant, let me know prior to the board meeting that there is another bill that we're going to be taking a look at. Do we have the write-up for that, Joycelyn? All righty. Do you want to start with that, or? Okay.
I wanted to start and say a few things. First of all,
Absolutely.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, members of the committee. Ms. Yamamoto, congratulations and welcome.
Thank you.
I asked the chair before if I could take a brief moment of personal privilege. Don't worry, it won't be a tearjerker, I don't think.
Probably will be. That's why I'm putting it out of my mind.
I wanted to introduce a teacher who's with us in the room who had more influence in my life than any other teacher, even though I was never assigned to her classroom. She's a Wisconsin retired public school teacher, Carolyn Boykin, my mom.
Good with this guy.
Did a good job.
Welcome to CalSTRS.
He's a keeper.
Thank you. And thanks for being here. So I wanted to point out a few things at the agenda. We talked last time about how many of the bills are related to how we do investments or even to divestment. And one of the things you asked for is a hearing, an informational joint hearing. And we have been working with the staff of the Senate and Assembly PERS committees, and they're committed to setting something up. Now, the timeline some of you mentioned was this fiscal year, with the budget going on, with everything that the normal cycles of the legislature. It looks like September is really going to be optimal, and I think that will be good. We don't want to do it during a recess. We want to make sure people are there and that they can be focused on it, and that we can hopefully have a wider audience than just the committee members, because that's not where all the bills necessarily come from. And I think being in the fall, it will be on their minds when the next year of the legislative cycle comes up. And we're also looking at different forums for communicating our message of how it is that we invest, what the risks we look at are, and how we engage on those risks, and how we think that engagement is much more effective than divestment. The other thing I wanted to note on the agenda is that two of the bills, AB 20 and SB 560. You have seen them before. You've taken positions on them. When Joycelyn presents them, she's going to explain how they've been amended since we've taken the positions and what our current recommendation is for your position. And the second thing to note on the agenda, the way it's organized, we have a section for information items for delegated decisions. Back in February, you adopted a policy where in between meetings, the vice chair and chair can take positions on bills. And this is a report out on the positions that the chair and vice chair did take in between meetings. So, thank you.
All righty, thank you, Grant. Joycelyn?
Great, thank you. Good afternoon. So starting at the top of the list, AB 20, as Grant said, is a bill that's back before you. In April, the board took an oppose unless amended position. The board took an oppose unless amended position, and the amendments that the board was requesting was that the divestment provisions of the bill be removed and that it be changed into a reporting bill on engagement with companies involved with the Dakota Access Pipeline. The author's office actually did take those amendments and move very far in that direction. They also put an amendment that had a specific provision requiring the board to consider tribal sovereign rights and sovereign tribal rights issues when they consider investments. So you'll see in the packet that the staff recommendation is oppose unless amended because that provision does infringe on the board's investment authority. And so we do have concerns around that. We have talked to the author's office and provided amendments that would switch that language to an encouragement that the board look at those issues. They've indicated that they don't wish to take any more amendments at this time. They feel that they've gone far enough. So we remain with the staff recommendation of the oppose unless amended.
All righty, we'll open that up for discussion. Anyone? All right, staff's recommendation is to oppose unless amended. I'd entertain a motion. So moved by Tom, seconded by Sharon. Is there any discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed nay. Any abstentions? We have 2 abstentions. 3, thank you. I just caught it out of the corner of my eye there. Alrighty, Joycelyn, moving on.
Excellent. The next bill is ACA 15. This bill was introduced very recently. Constitutional amendments aren't subject to the deadlines in the legislature, so it was introduced, if you want to say, kind of late in the process. This bill actually applies to new government employees, and it prohibits a government employer from enrolling those new government employees in a defined benefit plan, period, and enhancing their benefits or having the employer pay more than the total cost of the benefits unless there is a vote of the jurisdiction. There are many areas of the bill that are unclear. It causes many issues related to retirement, security, and mobility, recruitment and retention, and our funding and our administration of our plan. So they're all laid out specifically in the item, but I can go into more detail if you need me to. But the staff recommendation is to oppose this measure, basically because it would change our benefit structure in a way that may affect the funding of our benefits and our plan administration.
Okay, it's been moved by Sharon to approve the opposed position. And it's been seconded by Lynn. Is there any discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed nay. Any abstentions? All right. Steve, did you get those? Okay, thank you. All righty, we're playing by speed up rules. We might get done
moving along. SB 560 is the next bill on the list. This is the one that the chair alluded to at the beginning. This is the bill that on the introduced version, the board took an opposed position on. The bill has since been amended, and it did remove some of the language that was causing us concern around specifically tying some of the considerations in the bill to the board's fiduciary duty. And also it removed some specific protocols that called for certain computation in the bill. However, we still have concerns with the language. We've been working closely with the author's office. So I think we're hopeful that some of the amendments will be taken eventually. The bill was actually held on the suspense file, so it's not moving forward this year, but we've received indication from the author's office that they plan to keep on working on it. They hope to move it in January. So we don't know exactly where those conversations will go. We would like to see amendments, and they're outlined in the item, but dealing with the term financial climate risk, dealing with how the reporting required by the bill would work, and basically just some of the details around publicly traded companies, focusing on those, and broadly on the fund as opposed to individual investments. So right now, as the bill is in print, we still have concerns around those items. So the staff recommendation is to oppose unless amended. We'd like to keep working with the author's office, and we can bring it back to you as soon as we do see any movement or if we have updates.
Alrighty. Hang on just a second, Joycelyn. Lynn?
Thank you. I think Jocelyn just answered my question,
Okay.
that you will be bringing it back in January if they reintroduce.
Definitely if there are additional changes to the bill or if they have a new introduced version that's different, yep.
Okay, thank you.
For sure.
Jury?
And I assume it is likely that there would be amendments made to the bill if it was reintroduced, given that it's been put on suspense?
I think that is very likely, yeah. And the authors indicated that they hope to actually move this vehicle, so they hope to move SB 560 within the first month of session, so in January. So we'll see. I know that can be difficult to do, so we may also see a new bill with a different bill number.
Any further questions? Staff's recommendation is oppose unless amended. Is there a motion? It's been moved by Paul, seconded by Sharon. Any further questions? All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed nay. Any abstentions? The motion passes. Steve, am I going too fast for you on the abstains? You're able to catch up? Okay. I just want to make sure we're not moving too fast.
I don't think we can hardly ever say that.
No, not often. All righty, next bill.
Okay, the next bill is, now we're moving on to federal legislation. And we don't always have a lot of those bills to bring before you, but we actually have 3 today. H.R. 10, which is known as the Financial Choice Act of 2017, repeals several provisions of the Dodd-Frank Act and changes a lot of shareholder proposal thresholds and other things that really protect us as an institutional investor. That summary really doesn't do a lot of justice to the concerns that are related to this bill. There are several listed along the lines of being able to make shareholder proposals, advisory votes on executive compensation, our need for proxy research, disclosures and reliable financial reporting. And kind of the list goes on as to where the concerns are with this bill. And so we do have a staff recommendation of oppose, and it's restricts the investment authority of the board and goes against the policies the board has adopted along those lines.
All righty, it's been moved to oppose H.R. 10. There needs to be a second. Second. Been seconded by Paul. All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed nay. Any abstentions? Motion passes. Joycelyn, next one.
Excellent. H.R. 985, which is known as the Fairness and Class Action Litigation Act of 2017. And this bill actually makes significant changes to laws governing class action lawsuits, including prohibiting class certification unless each class member has suffered the same type and scope of injury, which is not generally the case right now in class action lawsuits. There may be slight differences. And so this very much restricts any involvement we might be able to have in these types of actions. And so because of that, the staff recommendation is to oppose this legislation.
Entertain a motion to oppose. Staff recommendation. It's been moved to oppose by Sharon, seconded by Karen. Is there any further discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed nay. Any abstentions? All righty.
Okay.
The motion has passed.
And the last bill for your consideration is H.R. 1205, the Social Security Fairness Act of 2017. And this bill repeals the windfall elimination provision in the government pension offset. There's actually a companion bill in the Senate that's not included in the item, Senate Bill or S915 by Senator Brown. Senator Brown from Ohio. So we're recommending a support position on this because of the reveal of the 2 offsets. And by board policy, we'll apply the position that you adopt on H.R. 1205 to S915.
Sharon?
Joycelyn, can you just kind of in brass tacks explain what the impact would be on members at this point? I mean,
of the offsets?
Would it really repeal WEP and GPO? I mean, if this passed, it would.
It would, yes.
It would do it.
Which would, there would be costs associated with that, and there would be other, things that that would indicate would happen. But yes, this is a true repeal. It's not like we saw HR 711 2 years ago, which was a
Brady bill, wasn't it?
revision of the formula used for the WEP. So this is, yeah, complete repeal.
And there's room, I don't totally understand how federal legislation gets done. Is there room to, if, there's pushback and, are there ways to just move the needle if we can't get a full repeal to at least move it closer? It's just something that we hear from members here and out and about talking to teachers in California constantly about this issue, myself included, all of us that are impacted by these things. So and it just seems like every year it sort of gets knocked down. So is there room to sort of move the needle a little bit, or is it?
I think HR 711 actually was a pretty hopeful situation, if you will. It came to almost to a markup, and then there was still some disagreement, I guess, so they decided not to take it up. But it was the closest, I think, that we've been to seeing something move forward that, again, wasn't full repeal, but could have helped some of the members who are affected by it, be affected a little less. It did include people, who were not vested, and so I think that's where some of the issues were around that. And in fact, why we, I believe, adopted a watch position on that bill, to keep an eye on that. But I think, and we're keeping an eye out because we're wondering if something similar might be reintroduced. And we haven't seen it yet, but I thought that was a lot of movement compared to what we've seen in the years before.
And I guess, Sharon, this is just another full repeal bill. There's been a repeal bill at Congress the last 17, 18, 19, 20 years. There's only, as far as I know, been one hearing on any of those bills. So it's,
Right.
yeah, all righty.
So I would move staff's recommendation with the hopes that 18th year's the charm, or?
There you go. Is there a second?
I'll take
All righty.
some.
Keep pushing.
Been moved by Sharon, seconded by Nora. Would you like to speak before we vote, Ed, or?
Yeah, if I could.
Absolutely.
I understand Ed Foley from CTA and retired. I understand the frustration of not getting something. However, it took women a lot of years to get the right to vote. And the whole civil rights movement takes a lot of time. If they really wanted to fix this problem, all they have to do is raise the cap, and they would do it. And I do not share the enthusiasm for 7-Eleven, because 7-Eleven, under the current thing, is revenue neutral. Somebody else is getting hurt under the provisions of Social Security offsets to balance it. So 7-Eleven, far as a National Education Association, we are against it because it does not solve the problem. The biggest problem is with GPO. Those are our families where a spouse dies and their spouse is under Social Security. They are left hanging. They don't have any income. We're hit very hard there. And so the fight has to go on. It might go on for another 2 years, another 4 years, but someday they're going to have to deal with this. Okay? And the reason why it's so expensive is because we've been subsidizing the system. That's why it's expensive. The only way you can do it is have everybody pay their fair share by lifting the cap. And so what you're doing here is you're saying we're in this fight for the long haul, and we're not about to say, oh, we give up because you guys keep on blocking it or you're not moving it. I just commend you to vote yes on this and support this bill. Thank you very much.
All righty. It has been moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Any abstentions? All righty. Thank you very much. That motion also passes. All righty. Do you want to update us on
Yes, the bills, the next four bills that are in the packet, we've included analyses so that you can have the details around those. These are the four items that the chair and vice chair took positions on for the board, so they were delegated to the chair and vice chair per the new policy. And I'll let you know what the positions are, where they're located, and where I think they may be going next. AB 946 regarding divestiture from companies involved in constructing a border wall. That bill was made into a 2-year bill. It remains in Assembly PERS committee, so it was never brought up for a hearing or a vote. And so it is possible that the authors may move that again next year. They haven't indicated that yet, but we are keeping an eye on it. The position on that bill is oppose. And we've obviously communicated all of these to the authors and to the legislature. The next bill, SB 32, which was PEPRA modifications. There were several provisions in that bill. And that bill actually did come up for a vote in the Senate Retirement Committee, and it did not get the votes to move out of committee, so it is not moving forward. And we were able to express the position at that hearing and via letter, and we did office visits as well. And on...
It's not completely dead, right? Reconsideration was granted?
You know what? That's a good question. I am not sure if it was on that one. There were a couple bills in that hearing where reconsideration was granted, but there was one where it was not. And now I'm like thinking back to whether or not that was the one where it wasn't. So, but generally reconsideration is granted, which means it can be brought up again. Usually there will have to be significant amendments.
So will you let us know? You'll be able to find out before we adjourn today and let us know?
Yes, about the
All right,
reconsideration,
thank you.
of course. And on AB 946, I should let you know as well that we were able to get our letter to the committee and to the staff of the members of the committee. SCA 8 regarding the California rule and repealing that was also an opposed position on that, and SCA 10, which basically says that if you want to enhance benefits in a defined benefit plan, you have to have a vote of the jurisdiction that the plan is in. So both of those, the board took an opposed position on those, and they are actually up on June 26th in the Senate Policy Committee. And so we've sent the letters on that. We'll be visiting offices and we'll be testifying in committee on that.
All right. We've not necessarily been invited to testify.
No, we'll testify.
Okay.
We will express our opposition at the hearing,
All right.
for sure.
Thank you.
And last but not least, it's not on the list, this is one that the board took a position on in April, it's AB 1597, which is the divestment from Turkish investment vehicles, and I just wanted to give you an update on where that is. So that bill has actually moved on to the Senate, so it will eventually be up in the Senate Retirement Committee. They have not amended the bill. We've spoken to the author and the supporters of the bill. You know, we've talked about engagement and how that, is a difficult proposition with this bill because it is, foreign government, and so it's not exactly a direction you can move with this. They are representing that the bill does not affect the retirement systems because it's based on the federal government issuing sanctions against Turkey. They don't anticipate that to happen, so they're saying that there's not anything that the systems will have to do if this bill is signed. There actually is a provision in the bill, though, that requires no new additional or renewed investments that would affect the system on January 1st if this bill is signed. So we'll be communicating that to the author's office, the committee, and just keeping everybody apprised that if they want it to really do what they're saying, that's not exactly what's happening right now.
All righty. So as to the report on the positions that the vice chair and the chair took, is this format sufficient for the board? You're okay with how we reported it out? All righty, super. Okay. And then we have and the whole legislative summary that's also attached is attachment 1.
Yes.
Did you want to say anything of those, about any of those?
Not necessarily. I can let you know where some of the bills you took positions on did end up. AB 1310, you had adopted an opposed position on, and that was held in the Assembly PERS Committee. Did not have enough votes to get out. Our housekeeping bill, AB 1325, is moving along. It'll be heard in the Senate Policy Committee on June 26th, along with those Senate constitutional amendments. AB 1451, I believe, was mentioned, so this had to do with the post-retirement earnings limit and an exemption to that. The author decided not to move forward with that bill this year, but they may be looking for different ideas on dealing with the teacher shortage, so we continue to talk with them. And SB 571 on automatic enrollment remains a 2-year bill, and so discussions are happening with that one. And I believe that's it.
All right, Are there any questions of Grant and Joycelyn? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Alrighty. Grant, you just don't get to go very far, do you?
Nope, I'm back.
So let's take a look at our amendments to the credible compensation regulations.
Okay. So I was just going to give sort of an update of the process we went through. Or do you want to have the committee look through the amendments and see if they have questions? I've had.
Pleasure of the board. Would you like to hear, we saw those amendments in April?
April.
In April.
Yeah, and there were some non-substantive changes by recommendation from you, and I think Department of Finance had a couple of changes as well. I could go through those too.
If they're not substantive, I think we're fine.
Yeah, and the important message is between April and now, we had a 15-day comment period, and there was no comment.
All right. Pardon? Okay, Arena's moved, and Harry has seconded the approval of these amendments. Is there any further discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Abstentions? Motion passes. You have your amendments, Grant. Thank you.